Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at Alma Linux. So this is Alma Linux that I have installed right here. I've already changed the theme to the dark theme and installed NeoFetch so you can kind of see some info about the system that's installed. Now we're going to poke around and look at things, but real quick first, I'm going to talk about the background of what Alma Linux is, what you would use it for, what you should expect, which is kind of the important part of this video, and then poking around and showing some of the features and disk layout is kind of secondary. So focusing more on the beginning part of this video to start out. So yeah, this is Alma Linux using a GNOME desktop with Wayland, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. But basically, Alma Linux is a free open source Linux distro. It's supposed to be one-to-one binary compatible replacement for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or RHEL. It's not necessarily bug-for-bug compatible like CentOS was. Now, the origin of Alma Linux, basically Alma Linux was created back in 2021 by the Alma Linux OS Foundation after Red Hat announced it was basically killing CentOS and moving regular CentOS to CentOS Stream. So Alma Linux was created to kind of fill that void and just fit in that gap, give a community-driven alternative for people who don't want to pay Red Hat subscriptions and want enterprise grade, basically an enterprise grade RHEL clone, right? That's what this is. We're enterprise grade Linux. So yeah. Compatibility, it's binary compatible with RHEL. It means any software that is built for RHEL or CentOS in the past will work the same way on Alma Linux. Use cases, basically it's for servers, cloud environments, and enterprises that want a stable, long-term supported OS without paying those Red Hat subscription fees. Red Hat basically has to make the source code free because Red Hat itself is building their OS on top of open source code where the license set, basically the Linux kernel, the core of Red Hat is basically the license for it says, hey, this is open source. So if you're going to build something with it, you got to make your source code free, which is why Red Hat is required to make their source code free and why people can clone them, and it's allowed and seen as a good thing. So anyways, little bit too much background on that, but basically the support for Alma Linux is about 10 years. I think 5 for active support and then another 5 after that for security fixes and stuff like that. So meant to be running a long time. This is if you want something that's going to work and keep running and be supported for a really long time, you would use this. Same reason you would use RHEL. Anything you would use RHEL for, this is something you could use for that. So it's community driven, and that's basically what it is. So let's see here. In short, Alma Linux equals, a free community alternative to Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and it's meant to replace CentOS because CentOS was doing that before. So it's not 100% identical, but it's very close. Alma Linux is a downstream rebuild of RHEL. It's designed to be one-to-one binary compatible. So anything that runs on RHEL should run the same on Alma Linux. Anything certified for RHEL, certain things are certified for it because it's like the biggest corporate run enterprise Linux distro that exists. So yeah, it's binary compatible and safe for production workloads, but bug compatibility is not necessarily guaranteed. In fact, they fixed some bugs in Alma Linux that they found, and they put fixes in Alma Linux that didn't exist in RHEL. So there's a little bit of divergence, but mostly it's almost completely identical, right? So binary compatibility, yep. Programs will behave nearly identically on both, so you should expect the same things, no huge surprises or anything. There might be slight differences. Rebuild fixes during basically when they rebuilt this from the source RPMs from Red Hat. So during building it, sometimes they ran into errors and they needed to use some rebuild fixes to ensure packages compile correctly. Red Hat may use like proprietary build processes and stuff like that they can't necessarily replicate completely, so it might be built slightly different, but they're the same packages. And differences in packaging scripts or dependencies. Also, any Red Hat trademarks or subscription hooks are going to be removed from this, so that's going to be different. Most application services and workloads will behave exactly the same on Alma Linux as they do on RHEL, and some very edge case bugs in RHEL may not appear in Alma Linux or vice versa, if they depend on the same build environment or proprietary tooling, right? So Alma Linux focuses on stability and compatibility, but not necessarily replicating every single bug. So what is identical? So before we just a little bit more before we actually start looking at stuff on here. But what is identical? Basically the core OS packages, the kernel, systemd, glibc, bash, core utilities, etc., all identical. Configuration defaults, file locations, system paths, SE Linux policies, firewall defaults, all that stuff, all the same between RHEL and Alma Linux. Security updates delivered at nearly the same time, rebuilt from RHEL sources. What else? Certification, compatibility, Alma. Yeah, we'll run everything. Anything certified to run on RHEL should run fine on Alma. So what is actually different? Obviously, branding and logos. Anything for Red Hat has to be removed and replaced with Alma logos. The build process fixes. Some extra repositories may be provided or enabled for convenience, so you could get them a little bit more easily on Alma. RHEL limits some repos and packages to paying subscribers only, but basically not a big deal. Just it makes it easier to do certain things. And there's subscription and telemetry, so RHEL may include subscription, registration, Red Hat Insights, stuff like that, telemetry tools. Alma Linux removes these, which is probably mostly a good thing, but it's a difference anyways. So optional tooling and images. Alma Linux provides open cloud images, container images, and builds for things like the Raspberry Pi, and sometimes they're faster on RHEL. Faster than RHEL. So that's basically basically what Alma Linux is, what you would use it for, and it's basically how it compares to RHEL, right? So this is GNOME. This is a GNOME desktop with the GDM display manager on Wayland. GNOME on Wayland. We're using the Mutter window manager. GNOME 47.4. This is this is Alma Linux 10, corresponding to RHEL 10. So, I already got NeoFetch installed on here. The install was pretty easy and flexible. It lets you select different roles or software groups. I'm using the graphical server install. So during the installation, when you select the software that's going to be installed, I went with the default, which is a graphical server install meant for servers, but it includes the GNOME desktop. If you're really running a server, you would probably select headless server and have no graphical environment, text only. And, there's also a workstation option. If you were running this as a workstation, you'd probably select that and get more software installed by default. Here I don't have any office tools or anything like that, just your basic, really basic stuff. Almost most of the stuff that you'd expect is not installed on here. You can still install it after the fact just fine, but it's not installed by default because I chose server with graphical. If I chose like workstation, I'd have more stuff installed. It also gives you the option to install a bunch of different options. You can do a custom install where you select a ton of different packages and options during installation. So, first thing we should probably take a look at here is, let's take a look at memory usage first right out of the box. So let's clear this free-H. So yeah, 32 gigs of RAM listed as 31 GI. No swap used. We have 15 right here. We're using only 1.4 gigs of memory, which is pretty good for I guess we have a minimal GNOME desktop here, so that's pretty good. I believe we were higher than that. I think, if I remember correctly, I think it was like an extra gig on SUSE Linux. Confirmed, SUSE was 2.6 gigs, but we were using KDE and not GNOME. Yeah, anyways, available RAM, buffered, what's being used for buffers and stuff like that, what's actually free. Anyways, all right, so anyways, let's clear this out and let's take a look at the disk layout. So df-h, and you see here we have we have a root partition, we have a home partition, boot, and so on and so forth. We have this is a separate disk. Let's take a look at this in LSBLK just to see the layout of the disk. So you see here we have boot EFI, regular boot, and we have a partition here split up for LVM for root, swap, and home. So it's using LVM, which is I guess a standard Red Hat thing, different from like SUSE where they use we're using BTRFS by default. But anyways, what else do we have here? Let's take a look at our FS tab, cat etc FS tab, and you can see all disks identified by UUID, which is a good idea. And you can see we're using XFS. I'm a little surprised at that. I guess that's the new thing. I'm surprised that RHEL, I guess, would be using XFS. I guess I'm out of touch a little bit. I figured that might be. I wouldn't have been too surprised on Fedora, but I think Fedora is actually using BTRFS by default these days. I think that's what I had seen on Fedora when I last tried it. But I actually did a video on that and reviewed these exact same disk settings on Fedora not long ago. But what else? Swap space. Yeah. So we've looked at all of that stuff. Let's take a look at the kernel that's running. So uname-a. So got our kernel here, 6.12.0-5532.1. And here's like the specific build. So that's our kernel. Let's take a look at etc issue. Not a whole lot here. This will just output. Yeah. That doesn't give us any good info on this OS, but we can look at cat etc OS release, and it'll give us a bunch of info like the name, the version. So this is Alma Linux 10.0, Purple Lion, RHEL, CentOS, Fedora, ID Lite. Yeah, lots of stuff. Anyways, one thing you can do on here. So I know on Red Hat systems, you can say Red Hat release. Okay, it still does have a Red Hat release, and it's Alma Linux release 10.0 Purple Lion. That's kind of good because it'll be convenient with scripts that rely on that. So for compatibility, I guess they have that. But interesting thing that they have here, they also have an Alma Linux release file, which is identical. And let's take a look at that real quick. Okay, this is a link. How about that? etc Red Hat release is a link to etc Alma Linux release. So it's just one file linking to the other. That makes a lot of sense, actually. You change one, the other one changes. So what else do we want to look at? The NVIDIA drivers don't matter that much. I guess you could theoretically be using this for AI or something, or you're going to be using NVIDIA compute, and in that case, NVIDIA drivers do matter to you. But this is not exactly a distro geared towards gaming because it's more stable and not the latest and greatest stuff. If you want a Red Hat based system for gaming, there's Fedora, not Alma Linux, but you could, I guess. But let's talk about NVIDIA drivers. So I have an NVIDIA card. Now it's an older NVIDIA card, so we can't use the open source NVIDIA driver. We need the proprietary NVIDIA driver or the open source community driver. One of those two will work. By default, I believe we have the open source community driver, the Nuvo driver. Let's take a look. LSmod rep-i NVI, so no NVIDIA, and NOU. All right, there we go. The Nuvo or Nueva, however you say it. Pretty sure it's pronounced Nuvo, but that's the driver. This is the open source community driver. So there you go. If you did want to get more performance out of this, like for gaming, you might want to put the proprietary driver on there. I'm sure it works just fine. But anyways, Wi-Fi drivers are working great. So I'm using a wired connection, but I also have a Wi-Fi card, and it's picking up all the access points around me. So it is working, and the driver is working by default. Totally fine. So I have this running on a desktop system, not on a laptop or anything. Still got Wi-Fi on it. Anyways, so networking. All right, so Network Manager is running. I wish I had also tried. I'm not going to also try this with the purely text-based version, but if this were a text-based server headless, I would imagine Network Manager wouldn't be in use, and we'd be using systemd networkd. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Systemd networkd would be more normal for a server, but since this is a graphical server, it's using Network Manager, which is fine. Don't quote me on that. I'd actually have to go check. I don't remember off the top of my head, but RHEL and Alma Linux probably should have, if you did a full headless install, it may or may not be using, maybe using systemd, networkd, or network manager. I'm not sure, but in this case, network manager makes a lot of sense since I'm using a graphical system. Anyways, so let's take a look. We have, all right, SE Linux is going to be here. So get, you might need sudo, yeah, enforcing. So SE Linux is in, we have SE Linux instead of AppArmor, and it's set to enforcing by default, which is pretty normal for a secure enterprise Linux distro. We have a firewall on here, so let's take a look at that. Sudo systemctl status firewall d. Yeah, so it's active and running. Firewall D is up and running. So let's say sudo firewall -cmd -list -all. You can see some firewall info, right? So nothing too exciting, and I'm not going to look at anything in any more depth than that. So we've already looked at RAM on idle, Pipewire. All right, should mention we're using Pipewire on here, even though this isn't like a cutting edge distro. I guess I'm a little bit out of touch. Even something like Alma 10 or RHEL is going to have Pipewire. It's been around for a while. They should probably still have it. You don't need to be bleeding edge to have Pipewire on your system for sound. Multimedia support out of the box. This should not have the proprietary codecs. I'm not going to look into how to install them. I don't think they're very, very hard to install these days, but I'm not going to look into how to do that. You might do that if you're running a workstation. I believe DaVinci Resolve is supposed to be well supported on here. This is one of the things that is best supported on RHEL or Rocky, CentOS, or Alma Linux. So it might matter to you. But any case, not looking into that at the moment. But it shouldn't be including that by default. It's including all open source stuff. So anyways. Included software. We don't have a lot included with this because I didn't choose the workstation install. So it comes with almost nothing. It does come with Firefox by default, pretty standard stuff. It comes with a regular file manager, files right here, regular GNOME file manager called files, which, let's see, what about files. So it's just files from the GNOME project, right? So pretty standard, normal stuff like in every other distro that has GNOME. We have a text editor. I believe this should be the new at this point. Just their new text editor, no more gedit. So what else? Calculator, some standard stuff, settings, system monitor. We have GNOME disks, really useful tool. And if you're going to have a graphical environment on a server, this is one of the more handy tools to have for that server or desktop. So standard stuff, but no like Office software or anything like that. So none of that because it's not a workstation install, right? So for a package manager similar to Fedora or RHEL, we have the DNF package manager, and the package format is RPM. So we have RPM packages, and there's an RPM tool to manage those. But for the actual package manager that manages dependencies and stuff, we have DNF. DNF is the new replacement. It's actually been around for years at this point, but it's a replacement for Yum, which was their original package manager that when they first started handling dependencies and stuff like automatic installations and stuff like that. Now, Flatpak. So we're using So besides the system package manager, which is DNF and with RPMs, we also have Flatpak. Now, no snaps because that's an Ubuntu thing that's pushed by Ubuntu, the competing corporate enterprise Linux. So RHEL from Red Hat, and obviously same Alma, which we're using here, is going to use Flatpak because Flatpak is a Red Hat thing and that's what they're pushing. It's a more open thing. It's kind of interesting, Red Hat being the ones pushing something more open than Ubuntu or Canonical, who makes Ubuntu. But anyways, we have Flatpak rather than Snap. And we don't have any remotes set up, so we can say list. We can see what lists are there. Nothing. We haven't installed anything yet. And you can say remotes and nothing there, right? So yeah, no refs for it. So the remotes are not set up by default. Kind of unfortunate, not super convenient, but I guess they didn't want to tie you to Flatpak for whatever reason. They didn't want to endorse it. They want to give you the option to do that yourself. I feel like Flat Hub. So I feel like Flat Hub should be the default because it normally is on most distros. But anyways, honestly, whatever. So no actual remote setup, but at least it has the tool installed, right? Now, in terms of a GUI to install software, we do have this software tool right here. So the normal GNOME Software Center, you can search for and install software from here. So whatever you want to get installed, you can just pretty much almost anything you could think of you have here. So there's that, pretty standard generic stuff. What else did we want to take a look at? All right, so let's talk about releases on this. So last thing, so I think we pretty much looked at everything we want to look at. So in terms of actual releases, we have the major versions, so this is point release, not a rolling release. So each one is going to be about 10 years of support. Major versions like Alma Linux 8, 9, and 10, each with about 10 years of support. There are minor point releases like 8.6, 8.7, 8.8, etc. These include security fixes and bug fixes and some hardware enablement, stuff like that. Major updates like kernel jumps and new default packages only happen with the next major release. So if you waited 10 years for, if you held on to your installation for a full 10 years, you'd be using packages that are at least 10 years old for a lot of things. If you wanted new, of course, you could just upgrade to a newer version if you wanted newer stuff, but on that version, you're going to be stuck with the old packages unless you use Flatpak. So that's really not an issue using Flatpak and FlatHub. Anyways, so the focus here is stability, long-term support, right? So that is it. That's Alma Linux. This is what you get with Alma Linux. Pretty standard stuff, basically just a RHEL clone. It's amazing how smooth this is. This is just the smoothness of the of the GNOME desktops. It is really smooth and nice by default, although I did have to change the I did change it from the default, which is like, it looks terrible like this, honestly. It looks terrible, but change it like this. There we go. Dark look looks pretty amazing. So there you go. That's Alma Linux. If you found this video interesting, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you've tried this, or if maybe you prefer Fedora or Rocky Linux. What's your personal preference, or are you on the Ubuntu Debian side of things? Do you prefer that world? What's your favorite Linux distro? Leave it in the comments down below. Also, if you like this video, if you want to see more stuff like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and also hit that bell icon. Do a lot more stuff like this. We also do other tech stuff like electronics, hardware, software, coding, Linux, Windows, all that sort of stuff. Just tech stuff, lots and lots of good tech stuff you want in your feed. So make sure you are subscribed. But that's pretty much it for today. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on that next video.